Hey, Bears fans, we got a jam-packed show coming up, some trade rumors, some free agency buzz, so stay tuned for that. But as promised, since we've crossed 2,500 followers on Instagram, first of all, thanks to all of you. Quick round of applause. Appreciate the support. Here's what we're going to do. This Sunday, March 13th, the night before free agency really begins with that tampering period, that's when deals start to happen on Monday, we're going to go live on IG, 6 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Central Time. Maybe that time will change, but that's the plan for now. So mark your calendars. Follow me on IG at HGramNFL. I'll get you guys on. We can break down some free agency rumors, take a look at some players the Bears could sign. It should be a lot of fun. So give me a follow on IG. It's at HGramNFL, and we will see you this Sunday night. Back to today's business here on Chicago Bears Now. I am your host, Harrison Graham. News, rumors, trade buzz, it's flying across the National Football League. It was a crazy Tuesday with Russell Wilson getting dealt and Aaron Rodgers staying in Green Bay. There's a lot going on. And you add in this, Bobby Wagner was released by the Seattle Seahawks. That'll officially go through today, which means he can now start signing with other teams as soon as 3 o'clock Central here on Wednesday. So in theory, he could sign somewhere this afternoon. Now, I fully expect him to take at least a few days, but I think there's a decent chance he could land with the team before free agency even begins. And could the Bears be that team? You know, I don't think there's necessarily a great chance Chicago would go take a swing at Bobby Wagner with him being a little bit older just because of where they're at with their roster construction. But you think about the possibilities of having him and Roquan Smith on the same defense. I mean, that would be maybe the best linebacker duo in the NFL. Maybe Devin White and Levante David would have something to say about that, but you just compare the numbers here. You're talking about 333 tackles combined a year ago. We know how good Roquan is in coverage, had a pick six a year ago. Bobby Wagner, by the way, this is last year's stats, 2021. Bobby Wagner is still an elite player. Don't get it twisted. People are like, he's old. He's not what he was. Guys, he had a career high in tackles last year, which I know is somewhat of an empty stat, but this duo would be incredible. Make no mistake about it. Now, do I want to invest heavily in another off-ball linebacker? I don't know. The Bears certainly have bigger needs. I think Matt Eberflus would love the idea of it, him being a defensive-minded guy with a linebackers coach background. But when you think about receiver, offensive line, corner, there's certainly bigger spots to fill. But if the contract was right, I certainly wouldn't be opposed to it. You just think about what this linebacker unit could look like with those two, being Roquan Smith. Bobby Wagner plugs in at middle. Now, the Bears haven't announced yet if Roquan will play the will or the Mike. I think he'll play the will because that's where Darius Leonard played in Eberflus's system, and I think Roquan will do the same. Who cares who the Sam linebacker is? You're a nickel most of the time anyway, but say Trevathan comes back healthy and is decent, then that's not a bad number 3 linebacker at all. Bobby Wagner is terrific. He's probably going into the Hall of Fame one day. I think I read, 10 years in Seattle, 8 All-Pros? Yeah, he's going to the Hall of Fame. He's one of the best linebackers of the last 20 years in the NFL. And you think about the history of the Bears, the linebackers they've had with Urlacher and Lance Briggs, and now Roquan Smith. Bobby Wagner fits that mold. Mike Singletary, you can want to go way back in the day as well. They have a history of elite linebackers, and Bobby Wagner is certainly one of those. Should the Bears sign Bobby Wagner? And this is the time for you guys to weigh in on the show. Type S for sign, type P for pass. Again, it depends on money and how the Bears want to, use their cap space because they do have those other needs. But I'll be honest, I'm at least a little bit tempted by the possibility of it. Let's go to another major rumor that's been circulating on the internet, again, with the Seahawks kind of entering what looks to be a rebuild. DK Metcalf trade rumors have been circulating. Could the Bears get involved in that? According to a report, Seattle would be open to trading Metcalf. This could be a full rebuild in Seattle. And if you're DK Metcalf, I know you're still young, but do you want to catch passes from Drew Lock next year? Probably not if you are DK Metcalf. And his skill set really fits what Justin Fields wants to do and what this offense wants to do from a throwing standpoint. Deep vertical passing attack. That is what DK Metcalf does. He runs past cornerbacks and he catches the ball downfield. That's what he does. Now, it seems unlikely for a few reasons. I think the main reason being, A, is Seattle going to actually trade Metcalf? And B, the Bears don't have a first-round pick. So I think without that kind of hurts your ammunition of trying to go get DK. Sure, you could offer a future first, but do you want to keep doing that? I don't know. We'll explore that more here in just a moment. But first, I'll tell you this. If the Bears trade for DK Metcalf, we're going live. That's why you subscribe to us here at Chicago Bears Now. Non-stop Bears videos, daily basis, sometimes multiple videos per day. The latest news, rumors, free agency coverage, which is here as free agency officially starts next week. Subscribe. The link is below. It's youtube.com/BearsNow. You look at Metcalf through his first 3 seasons in the National Football League. 2019 came in, had 900 yards on 58 catches. The yards per catch has always been very good for him, and he's been a touchdown machine. 7 touchdowns in year 1. Year 2 was his best season. Still had a good year last year, and you have to factor in that Russell Wilson missed a good chunk of time, but you're talking about 29 touchdowns in 3 seasons. A guy that gives you about 10 touchdowns a year. You don't just find that growing on trees. DK Metcalf is an absolutely fantastic player and one of the best deep threats in the NFL. Here's the deal, though. If I'm Seattle, I want a first-round pick for DK Metcalf. I know they drafted him in round 2. That was a steal. But what he's produced early in his career, the fact that he's still very young, he's worthy of a first-round pick, and the Bears don't have that. They only have 5 draft picks in total, the highest being number 39 overall with that second-round pick. You've got a third-round pick, no fourth, 2 fifth-round picks, a sixth-round pick. If you're Ryan Poles, you got to, balance this idea of, okay, we want to get young impact players that can help right away, and DK Metcalf would certainly do that for you. But let's say you don't have a first, but you offer Seattle your second and third. Yeah, that's decent value for Metcalf, and, in theory, I would do that trade if I'm Chicago, but then I don't have a draft pick until the 5th round. I don't know if your first draft as a GM, if you don't want a pick until round 5. I don't know if that's the best practice if you're Ryan Poles. So, again, like any other possibility, right? Get on the phone, see what the value is, see what's what. But in reality, Seattle can get better offers from other teams, and I'm not convinced they trade him anyway. I will ask you this, though, or, request this. Send in your best DK Metcalf trade ideas. Maybe you got player-for-player trade ideas. Would you trade Khalil Mack for DK Metcalf straight up? In theory, I'd probably consider that. Now, would Seattle do that? If they're rebuilding, do they want a 30-year-old pass rusher coming off a foot injury? Probably not. But get creative with it. Have fun in the comments. I'll be reading them to see what you guys come up with. Today's show presented by our sportsbook partner, that is BetUS, and this is the time to get those brackets ready and go bet on some college basketball games. I know a lot of you folks are Illinois fans, Loyola fans as well. They're back in the big dance. Get going with BetUS. Yeah, Sister Jean's still kicking. She's going to outlive us all. Chatsports.com/Bears, promo code BEARDOWN to get that 125% deposit bonus. Put down $100, get $125 for free. Here are the current national title favorites. Gonzaga, who just won their conference tournament, plus 450. Is this the year for them? Arizona, Kentucky sitting there at plus 650, Duke at plus 1,000, the defending champion Baylor Bears plus 1,100. I think that's pretty good value for them, to be frank as well. I think I saw Illinois plus 3,000. Not bad for a team that split the Big Ten regular season championship. You want to find some decent value, you could go bet on the Fighting Illini. Get started today, chatsports.com/Bears. Promo code is BEARDOWN. Let's keep it going with these Bears rumors here on today's show. A little update on Amari Cooper. Remember last week we broke down that story that Dallas would, quote, likely release him. That came from Adam Schefter last week. And then, some trickle down effect. Ian Rappaport said, well, they'll try to trade him first, and it appears they're at least trying to do that. Jane Slater mentioned today that the Cowboys are taking calls on Cooper. And that it could take up until the 5th day of the new league year because that's when Cooper's owed a lot of money. And if they don't get a trade by then he'll probably be cut. Here's what Slater had to say. Don't expect news on Cooper until we get closer to the 5th day of the league year. Why? I'm told the Cowboys have been fielding some calls. Advantage for teams. You don't battle him on the open market. They get to redo the deal and can spread money out via signing bonus. So basically a team could trade for him and do what Dallas is refusing to do, which is restructure his contract and push money down the road. In theory, could the Bears do that? Yes, but kind of like the DK story, they don't have the ammunition that other teams have. I would not expect Chicago to get involved in a trade for Amari Cooper. I definitely think if he gets cut, they would at least get involved in that. Now, maybe they would have a max price that they're willing to offer. Maybe they get outbid, but I do not think that Ryan Poles would trade for Cooper at this point, especially since last week it was leaked that they're probably going to cut him. So Do you trade for a guy after, 6 days after it's been reported that they're likely going to cut him? I don't know if that's really good business. I do know that Amari Cooper is a good player. He's got over 7,000 yards in 7 career seasons. I mean, he's kind of the consistency is the name of the game with him. He's been fantastic. I don't really get why Dallas is operating like this, but that's a different story. That's their problem. That's not ours. I think he'd fit great in this wide receiver room. He's your wide receiver 1. Darnell Mooney's your wide receiver 2. Maybe you draft a wide receiver 3 type and you're good to go. Or maybe you sign a Marquez Valdez-Scantling to be that speedster as your number 3 wideout. You'd certainly have some more flexibility, but as we continue to discuss, after Darnell Mooney, you don't have much at receiver because I don't think Allen Robinson is coming back as he's about to be a free agent. Now, we've talked about 2 receivers today. Pick one for me. Who would you rather have? Don't factor in trade compensation or anything. Just pick a player. Type DM for DK Metcalf. Type AC for Amari Cooper. Man, I might go DK because I think he's a better pure deep threat and he's younger, obviously, but both these players are obviously very good. All right, last story here. Well, kind of last story here on Chicago Bears Now by Chat Sports. Christian McCaffrey, could he get traded to the Bears? Well, Colin Cowherd thinks that they should pursue it. Talked about how McCaffrey could help a young quarterback. There's a lot of problems with this, and I'm going to outline these for you guys. The biggest problem is the Panthers want at least a first-round pick. I've heard they want a first and a player. Well, again, as we continue to discuss here on Bears Now, Bears don't have a first-round pick, so that's already out the window unless you're trading a future first, which I'm not doing that for McCaffrey to begin with. And the other problem is you already have David Montgomery. Why do you need both? Here's what Cowherd had to say. You're not paying Justin Fields anything. Montgomery and him being McCaffrey, Chicago makes sense. It actually doesn't make sense, though. That's the thing, and here's 3 reasons why it doesn't make sense. Like I mentioned, you don't have a first-round pick, okay? That's problem number 1, and that's what Carolina wants. Number 2, McCaffrey's contract is brutal for a guy who has not played in the last 2 years, basically, due to injuries. And you don't need a running back. You have David Montgomery. You have Khalil Herbert. Yeah, is Christian McCaffrey better than those guys? Of course. But I'm not trading a first-round pick for a guy who makes $15, $16 million per year and hasn't been healthy the last 2 years. It just doesn't make sense. I like Cowherd. I think he has some good opinions. I think this is a bad one, though. I think it's one of his worst takes in recent memory, to be quite honest. It's just you don't trade a first-round pick plus more for a running back to begin with, and you definitely don't do it for a guy who hasn't played the last 2 years. So I like Cowherd. I like McCaffrey as a player. He can play some slot receiver for you, which could help the Bears. But the last 2 years have shown me that I am not trading for Christian McCaffrey. Now, name a player you would like to trade for. Let's hear it from you guys down in the comment section. Who would you like to see Chicago trade for if you could pick anybody this offseason? All right, some quick news that dropped yesterday, just roster notes here. 3 exclusive rights free agents have been tendered, so they will return next year. Tight end Jesper Horsted, who I'm actually kind of high on. I'd like to see what he can do in this new offense. Center Sam Mustipher, who started last year, I'm fine with him being back. I'd prefer them to upgrade there, but I think he's a quality backup type. And then Latavius Simmons, still kind of a developmental piece, 7th-round pick from a couple years ago. You need bodies on your O-line. Okay, he could fight for a roster spot. So that's kind of the roster update from late yesterday. All right, appreciate you guys for tuning in to today's show. Bears Now IG Live. Reminder, this Sunday, 5 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock for you folks on the East Coast. So follow me at HGramNFL. Join us for that. And in the meantime, if you do give me a follow, slide in the DMs. I'm always chatting up with you guys about the Chicago Bears. Ask me whatever questions you have. I will get back to you as soon as I can. More news to come probably in the next day or so. So stay tuned, subscribe, and we'll see you soon here on Bears Now.